people want to be in a growth mindset if they're encouraged to be in a growth mindset, if they're reminded that learning is how they get ahead. The people that we hire, they naturally gravitate towards that kind of belief as long as you celebrate the process with them. I think the place where people tend to get into fixed mindsets is when they're discouraged or penalized for growth, for learning, for going through the process of not being good at something and then learning how to be good at it. We take a very long-term view of our people. We are not looking to hire someone to hit a quarter. We are trying to hire someone to build a long-term career relationship with.
I'm Devin Reed.
And I'm Sheena Badani.
And you're watching Reveal, the Revenue Intelligence podcast powered by Gong.
Keep watching here to see the full interview. Or if you like to listen to podcasts on the go, check out the links in the description below.
And if you like what you hear, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or all of them. Why not? And while you're there, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. We personally read every single one, and I think I speak for both of us when I say they mean the world to us.
Could not agree more, Devin. Now, without further ado, here's the episode you've been waiting for. So today we have Dan Shapero, who is the VP of Global Solutions at LinkedIn with us today. It's great to have you here, Dan.
Pleasure to be here. Great to see you.
And we've worked together a couple times in the past, so I was really looking forward to having you here and reconnecting and just seeing all the things that you're up to now. So it's really great to see you in person.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I was really looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, we usually like to get the podcast kicked off with a couple icebreaker questions. So to kick it off, what's your morning routine? If you have one.
Morning routine. Well, I have 3, elementary school age kids. My boys are 10 and 8, and my daughter Avery is 5. And so I would say the morning is absolute chaos. Just trying to get everyone dressed and fed and ready for their day while you're trying to get ready for your day it's a success every morning. And my big part of the morning is I make breakfast for the kids. So, and 3 kids, 4 different breakfasts. Like everyone wants something different. And, we're slicing fruit, we're cooking, eggs, we're making toast, like we're trying to fit it all together. But every day everyone gets to school. And honestly, being able to do that, and then I take them to school twice a week is just kind of one of my favorite parts of the day.
That's better than me. I just take out the box of cereal and the milk. If you want it, you have it. Otherwise, off to school you go. So VP of Global Solutions, tell us a little bit more about what that means to you, what that role means to you.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a consumer platform, and we've had the fortune of building some amazing businesses on top of that platform across recruiting, learning, marketing, and sales. And so I'm responsible for the global field team that brings those solutions to customers all over the world and helps them solve big problems. And ultimately, that's the basis upon which LinkedIn's business is built.
And your background was a little bit unique. Like you didn't start in sales. So how did you actually get your way into sales and running a sales org?
Yeah, well, I was actually more of an entrepreneur coming out of college. I started my first company in college, which actually helped high school athletes get recruited by college coaches, and I loved it. And so I came out to the Valley after graduation, joined a few more startups, and so I'd always enjoyed the process of having an idea, trying to communicate it to others, get people bought in, build a partnership. And I think that naturally lends itself to sales in a lot of ways. But it wasn't until I joined LinkedIn and the head of sales at the time, Mike Gamson, came to me and said, we're going to build this great sales team. Like you should join us. You should become a sales leader on the team. And I said, that's a terrible idea, Mike. I have never done sales before, and we're in this hyper growth stage. You need people that have done this before.
Right.
And he's like, no, I think this is going to be a good thing for both of us. So at LinkedIn was really where I cut my teeth, and I found that there were a lot of things that were completely new to me about sales, but there were a lot of instincts I had from my entrepreneurial days and my consulting days that were really helpful. And I spent then at LinkedIn 5 years on the sales team, and then we can talk a little bit later, but wound up doing a tour in our product organization before coming back to sales now.
So what was that? What was the decision-making process that led you to want to go into product? Because I think that's pretty unique that folks are not, once you're in sales, like you're going down that track for the rest of your career most likely. So what led you to take that detour?
Yeah, it was really a conversation with our CEO, Jeff Weiner. I've known probably since some of my entrepreneurial days that I aspired to be a great CEO one day of a tech company, to lead a great tech company. And I was sharing that with Jeff, who, is just so exceptional at being a CEO. And he said, you're doing a great job in your current role. And at the time, I'd grown the LinkedIn business and recruiting from about $40 million to about $1 billion in about 5 years. Wow. And I was very proud of that. And he looked at me and he said, it's great that you've accomplished this. You've learned so much. But honestly, great tech CEOs or great tech companies are built on great products. And you need to learn how to build great products or great technology if that's what you aspire to be, if that's how you want to reach your full potential as a potential CEO someday. And so I took that feedback to heart. To be honest, in the moment, it wasn't the best feedback to receive. I thought I was doing a great job. I thought that I was learning so many things. I was delivering for the company. And it's one of those moments where someone tells you a truth that isn't necessarily comfortable in the moment. But upon reflection, you realize is right, is the sort of the cold water you needed splashed on your face a bit. And once I came to understand that truth, I realized I needed to go do it. Like if I really wanted to have this journey and be a potential CEO someday or lead a great tech company, I needed to learn product. And honestly, the only way to learn product is to do product. You can't learn it from afar. You can't learn it by being connected to it. You need to build a product from the ground up. And so I moved from my sales responsibilities as a leader to an individual contributor on the product team. And over the course of 5 years, got a chance to manage a bunch of different amazing products. And it was a fantastic journey. I learned so much. And ultimately then had the opportunity to come back and lead the sales team at large at LinkedIn.
That's really interesting. I don't think it's an opportunity that a lot of people can take that time. And I think part of it is maybe the longevity and that you'd proven yourself at LinkedIn. You'd been there for a long time. You had the relationship with the executive team. You could take that time to explore and develop yourself in your career. What about for other sales managers, sales leaders who are listening who want to get more exposed to the product side of the business? And I know you said that like you can't just do it from afar. Like what's a way that they can kind of get close to that part of the business?
Yeah, well, I think that most sales leaders that I talk to, if they think about their long-term aspirations in their career, what I hear from them is that maybe they want to lead revenue at a company someday, or they want to be a COO. And I think that being a great revenue leader or a great CEO means you have to be a great partner to the product team. Not necessarily you need to know how to build a product, but you need to be a great partner to the product team. And I found that the best ways to build out that skill set is either to take a tour in product marketing, which can be a fantastic way to understand how to translate product into something that can be brought to market, or to get great feedback from the market and bring it back into the product roadmap. So product marketing is actually a nice tour for sales leaders.
Yep.
The other is just get involved in launches. When a new product at your company is being launched, or you're doing a new iteration on your existing product, that early feedback loop, those pilot customers, the process of charter or beta, those are the moments where I feel like you can really get a handle on what are some of the considerations that are important to great products, even without going into the product org or the marketing org. So I usually say that those two are great ways to sort of cut your teeth a little bit.
Yeah, that's super good advice.
You had a great quote from one of your blog posts on mentorship, which I think kind of ties into this idea of moving from department to department, realizing your full potential. I'm going to read from it so I get it correctly. But the quote goes, you don't exactly know how, but every moment of your life is going to set you up for what you'll end up doing later. Your hobbies, struggles, relationships, classes, and life experiences are all preparation for capitalizing on future opportunity. So maybe there's some more defining moments you can share with us besides, going from sales to product that would help some other folks that are listening kind of, get some confidence of their past experience and say, hey, there's another mountain for me to kind of get to the top of.
Yeah, I over the course of my life, there's been a pattern that I've experienced where I go through something hard or I go through something for joy, and then only realized later that that thing that I went through is super helpful right now in a way that I never appreciated. As an example, my first startup in college was focused on soccer players. Now, I grew up playing soccer pretty competitively, and I would never have thought that that experience as a soccer player would someday lend itself to an opportunity to be an entrepreneur, to learn how to build a startup. And yet, without that experience, there was no way I ever would have had that success. And, you know, whether it's when I talk to people that I try to mentor people, not just from my circle, but LinkedIn has a great program called LinkedIn Coaches. And I spend time with students coming out of school that come from families that don't have connections into the industries that they might want to get into. And one of the things that I sort of feel is a huge wonderful thing for them to realize is that the things that they're going through to get their first job, that grit that they're building, the determination that inherently is in them to get to that point, that's going to set them up for a beautiful future in a way that they don't appreciate in the moment. All that they feel is, oh my gosh, like my family's been investing so much in me going to college. Now I gotta pay it back. I gotta pay it forward. And what I see in them is, wow, like this is a person that is going to build a fantastic life for themselves, and they just don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So I try to remind them in those moments because sometimes the hardship, you can start to see it in a different light.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely relate to that. There's been some, in your career, not all of your moves are the best moves, right? And I remember having one sales job I just did not like. Like within 60 days, I was like, this is not gonna be great. Trying to stick it out for a while. Ironically, it was with a video company. And so I was making videos all the time, and I was leaving the company finally and was like, man, I've wasted a lot of time making these videos. Fast forward, 3 years later, here we are making a podcast and making tons of video content for salespeople. And so it took a couple of years to realize, hey, all that experience that seemed kind of wasteful actually ended up teeing me up for something even bigger and better than I thought I was going to accomplish. Yeah.
Well, and I think part of the thing that happens, and that's a great example for you, is that experiences let you see the world differently. And my guess is when you came, to Gong or in other parts of your life, you saw an opportunity in a way that another person that had not had that prior experience could see. So it wasn't just the skill of doing, it was the ability to see. And I find that people often with the best ideas have an experience that allows them to see opportunity in a unique way.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really good. So why don't we get a little bit more into the organization that you run? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the sales team so that we have a sense of like the scale and the scope of what you're responsible for.
Yeah, so I'm responsible for all of the quota carrying reps at LinkedIn, all of the post-sales, customer success team, all of the foundational teams around sales ops, sales tools, sales productivity and training, and really the whole field org. So it's about 6,000 people spread out over 25 offices around the world, and we support tens of thousands of customers in 4 different lines of business, whether it's recruitment, learning, marketing, or sales.
So with that scale, how do you make sure that you have like a strong pulse of what's going on both with your employees and with your customers?
Yeah, well, I think the more senior you get, I think that the more your job is to make sure you have a picture in your mind of what's actually happening on the team. You do less, you absorb more. And so there's a lot of ways to make sure you have the right information. Part of it is you have great people around you that help analyze the business that you're running. And we have a pretty, wide business with a big surface area. But you cannot replace the texture of listening to a customer talk about what it feels like to work with your company. You can't replace sitting down with a rep in Singapore and looking in their eyes and having them talk to you about how they feel about their career at the company. And so I try to operate at both altitudes with as even energy as possible. And what I've found is that it basically means that when I go on all my trips around the world, that I have a very distinct playbook for listening, which is I listen and I don't talk. So as an example, I'll sit down with reps, in Sydney as an example. I'll be going to Sydney in February. And I will say, please, I have a question for each of you. And my goal here is to listen and not respond. I'm going to take it all in. Like there's always when you have a complaint or a gripe, and people are very at LinkedIn, very open and constructive about their feedback. There's a tendency to want to, oh wait, like you have that problem, we're fixing that. But like that's not what that meeting is about. The meeting is about me making sure I have a sense of what it feels like to be an employee, to be a customer. And I use your product. So when I came into my new role in February, every morning on the way to work, I listened to a sales call.
Nice.
Like opened up the mobile app and I found a call and, I tried just to understand where the conversation was.
So, you'll have these conversations with, open-ended conversations with the sales team where you're really focused on listening. How do you take and, synthesize all that information and then do something about it so that the team feels like it's a two-way dialogue and the leadership is listening and doing something about what I have to say? Absolutely.
Well, there's sort of two levels of that. One is when you get feedback from a team, it's important that you follow up with them and at least you acknowledge that you heard what they said. And I think oftentimes just feeling like you were heard accurately and with the right intention and the right care, that is a huge thing that I think people don't do enough of, to be totally honest. Then what I tend to do is I take those examples and I use them in my general narrative to the team. So I just sent out a holiday message to my team, thanking them for a great year. I took it as a moment to share and reinforce some of the things that I know are important, which are related to things that have been shared with me. And so I have a fantastic, and LinkedIn generally has a fantastic internal communications team. And all we think about is making sure that our entire team is on the same page about what's going on, what matters, what we're doing about it, so that people, know that leadership cares. And I think LinkedIn does a fantastic job of that. Jeff in particular is world-class at that. And that we're doing something about it. And so I am already thinking about at our next sales kickoff in July, how am I going to harken back to things I said in the prior July and show that that wasn't just talk. We talked about diversity and inclusion. Like what's the progress we made on diversity and inclusion? We'll talk about customer value and making sure that our customers are getting as much value as they possibly can from our products and how much progress are we making on that. I think that having the moments to build and reinforce the story over the course of the year is a big part of making sure that you have a team that feels like really connected to their leaders.
Yeah, we had Lake Adoshi from LinkedIn here a couple of weeks ago, and I can hear alignment is true because you guys are both basically talking about how key it is to be aligned across all the teams, but also closing the loop right on these projects and these conversations that you've had before starting new ones.
Yeah, and well, Lake is such a talent. She has three things that I wish more people had. She is strategic, she is operationally savvy, and she cares about people incredibly. And I feel like that's a little bit of the formula for the kinds of people that tend to be successful on my team.
Absolutely. Maybe in the spirit of listening, and probably plays a part in it, what are some of the unanswered questions that you're currently tackling?
Yeah, well, I think that the big trend that I'm paying a lot of attention to right now, or I'm really focused on, is that, in technology, and this has been a trend going on for a decade, right? But we've moved to subscriptions as the primary way that we work with our customers. And, if you go back 20 years, it was very much a license model. You sold, if you were in hardware, you sold a box. If you were in software, you sold a license, and the deal was done, and you sort of walked away. And I think it created a mentality in sales of the success point is the closing of the deal. And I actually remember back to a meeting I had coming out of school where I met with this really successful salesperson, and my dad was encouraging me to learn about sales. He thought that might be interesting. And I remember talking to this person and just how much they loved closing the deal and how little they cared about what happened afterwards. And that just doesn't play anymore. I mean, we're in a subscription business where every year a customer decides whether or not they value the relationship, whether or not they want to go bigger with their vendor or their partner. And it's based on a better understanding of where value is getting created. And so I think we're in a moment where we need to rethink what sales is from a deal closing organization to a customer value organization, because customer value is the best predictor of long-term success of the relationship. Like we see it time and time again. The customers that get value from our products, whether they're hiring people, closing deals, building leads, learning for their organizations, those are the customers that grow over time. But if you ask the average salesperson, like, what's your job? Or like deep down, what do you think your job is? It's like signing paper.
Close deals.
And that's the start.
Right.
And I think this trend is incredibly healthy because it aligns the buyer with the seller. Right. At the end of the day, we care about the same thing in that world. I care about delivering value for you because I know that if I deliver value for you, that's going to translate into a healthy business, a bigger business, and a bigger relationship over time. And that's a partnership. That's actually the definition of a partnership is real alignment.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift, and something we coach here is like, for a sales rep, oftentimes the signature is the finish line. Yeah. But for the client, it's actually the starting point.
That's right.
Yeah. Right, for the most part. And then to your, the idea of the trends coming, it's like you sell a certain amount of value up front, but you actually have to increase that value during the next 12 months, or else someone else will try to come, snipe your client, or they'll just say, hey, not really feeling the love, not really feeling like I'm getting more out of next year. So it definitely is a mindset shift there.
Well, and I think part of that if you sort of take that thought to its conclusion, I think you're going to see more companies recognize that customer success really matters and customer value really matters, but actually that the opportunities for growth is doing more with the companies that already love you, as opposed to finding new companies or saving a situation that really wasn't a good fit to begin with.
Yeah.
We see a ton of growth just by doing more with the companies that we already do a great job with, but taking it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Touching on the customer value piece and customer success, how do you encourage your sales organization to work collaboratively with customer success so that is viewed as an entire life cycle and journey, and you are focusing on the customer value and doesn't end when the deal starts?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think it starts with education. So the reason that it's important for customer success to align with sales, and the reason why customer value is so important, is because it's just true. Like, it is true that customers getting value is what grows your business. And so I don't know that everyone for their first sales job necessarily gets that at a deep visceral level. I think once you understand that, it's kind of like saying, does culture matter with your team? Yeah. It's like, well, 20 years ago, people would have said, yeah, it's cool we have a poster, but do I really believe that culture matters? Not really, right? I think to now we have a generation of leaders that deep down believe that culture makes a difference. Right. And I think once you get that belief, you just act differently. And I found that there's sort of a belief in the world that salespeople are coin operated, that you have to tie it to the comp plan. It has not been the case at LinkedIn from as far as we're concerned. Of course, you want to use comp plans to align your teams with what matters, but things like customer value, things like culture, if you build them into the DNA of your team, they will show up every day trying to make those things happen, and they will work with each other to make them happen, because they know that that's what makes the business successful.
Yeah.
So I think working in technology, you're in a landscape that's always evolving, right? There's new capabilities, there's new technologies, like we're in a world of machine learning and AI, and that's getting pulled into the product every day. And sales folks have to also continue to enhance their skills and learn new things. So how do you encourage your team to have that growth mindset, be in that mindset where they want to continue to learn new things and evolve and grow with the business and the industry overall?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I love the fact that growth mindset has become a topic of conversation as a parent with 3 small children, thinking about being a good parent, as a leader of a big team. And to be honest, it's wonderful to be LinkedIn being part of Microsoft, to have a CEO in Satya Nadella who has championed growth mindset across the entire organization. So having that kind of top-down support and encouragement, I think, is really powerful. But I've generally found that people want to be in a growth mindset if they're encouraged to be in a growth mindset, if they're reminded that learning is how they get ahead. And I think that the people that we hire, they naturally gravitate towards that kind of belief as long as you celebrate the process with them. I think the place where people tend to get into fixed mindsets is when they are discouraged or penalized for growth, for learning, for going through the process of not being good at something and then learning how to be good at it. And we take a very and maybe where it comes from for us is we take a very long-term view of our people. we are not looking to hire someone to hit a quarter. We are trying to hire someone to build a long-term career relationship with, that at some point will transition into them doing something fantastic in their career, whether it's at LinkedIn or outside of LinkedIn. And I think that kind of long-term mentality means that you invest in your culture and you invest in the development of your team, because you're going to be together for a while.
I actually recently heard Mike Gamson speak at a sales assembly event in Chicago. And he talked about a program that LinkedIn created to, I believe it was to bring in teachers, educators, who had never worked in sales before, but to give them the extra time because to teach them the sales skills that they needed, because they already inherently had other skills that are needed. Going to a new space, helping to teach customers about like what LinkedIn may be doing, but then that extra a couple months of ramp time that the program offered really helped to get those folks on par with everybody else who already maybe had a sales background. So I thought like programs like that are really interesting, where you're helping folks to like learn and develop these new skills, come into a new sector, and then set them up for success. Is LinkedIn still doing either that initiative or similar initiatives that you could touch on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have programs in multiple functions at LinkedIn that are designed to bring people from less traditional backgrounds into the company, give them more space to develop the skills that they need. And these people are just fantastic, right? They have tremendous aptitude. They tend to be very flexible. They just may be 10% short of the qualifications of the kinds of things that you would normally hire for. And so they might normally get screened out, but we have this in sales, we have this in engineering. It's a great way to build out our diversity efforts, because we can have a larger talent pool to sort of engage with. And think about it like a teacher, right? Like, what is sales but building a relationship with someone, helping educate them on the way to think about a problem in a different way, provide them with a solution that solves that problem for them. That person may not have ever held a quota, but wow, they've been spending years and years of their life trying to help people learn new things. In passionate ways. And so when you find that person that has that appetite, like, why not take a hold of them? The worst words you can hear in a hiring discussion is hit the ground running. Hit the ground running. If I had a nickel for every time someone said, like, we need to find someone that hit the ground running, and I just cringe every time I hear it, because that means you're solving for hiring based on a 3-month window. And anyone in your team, if you intend to have a long-term relationship with them, you need to at least be thinking 18 months, if not 24 months. And so my question every time I'm in that moment is, on what time frame are you optimizing for? At what moment should we pull up and ask ourselves whether that was a great hire or not? And if that person says 3 months, I'm like, well, we're on the wrong time frame, right? If it were 18 months, would you make a different decision? Right. And oftentimes they'll say yes. I'm like, great. I'd like us to make a decision on an 18-month time frame. Is there anything that we need to change about how we're going to bring this person in to make sure that we are solving for 18 months as opposed to 3 months? Sometimes there are. So, but I think that it is absolutely in service of the long-term health of the team and the business to be hiring people that are going to hit their potential over a longer arc.
No, that's refreshing to hear, because I think 90% of sales orgs have a 3-month ramp. Kind of no matter if you're on the SMB team, if you're on the upper enterprise, sure, you get a little bit longer, but it's like there's no way across all these different types of businesses and who you sell to that every seller should be on this 3-month ramp period. And I think it's true. It's like, can we get this person in and hit quota basically in 3 months? And it's like, you should look a little bit further than that, right? Like, is this $1 million hire? Is this person going to be able to bring $1 million+ like you said, in like 18 months?
Yeah, well, and I think that the mix is to be able to spot early whether you just have a bad fit. So you don't want to necessarily wait to 18 months to make a decision on someone that doesn't look like it's working. But the question is, what are you solving for? And sometimes there are people that have, like, you see it in them, right? Those moments, you see it in them. You just know it might take a little time. Like, you need to be making those bets all day long. There are other people that come in and you're like, this we missed something. It's not a great fit. We can see that, they can see that. All right, well, let's sort of figure out how to manage through it.
So looking into the future, what sales trends are you most excited about? If whether it's machine learning, AI, other things, like what excites you the most?
Yeah, there are two. One is this sort of trend around salespeople rethinking their jobs from being deal closers to being people that are helping their clients add value, grow their businesses. It's a much different mindset. I think it's a mindset that customers love and appreciate, but hasn't always been in the DNA of sales orgs. And some core sales orgs, there's a mentality of, in fact, being combative with your customer. It's us versus them. I mean, like, what could be further from the truth? If you have a subscription model or you have an auction model where these relationships and the economics from these relationships get built over a very long arc, you need to build a long arc kind of sales team. And so I think that is, that brings value to the table. So I think that that's a big thing that sales leaders are learning to go through. And I think the ones that are figuring it out are the ones that are doing fantastic work. I think the other is you're seeing companies build much greater strength in what we at LinkedIn call our foundational teams. So sales ops, sales tools, sales productivity, training. These teams are becoming the bedrock of how many sales organizations operate. And I think you had a generation of sales leaders before that came up through the sales ranks, so they really understood how to run a team, but maybe they didn't have as much system level thinking about how to operate that foundational layer. The companies that I see doing great have sales leaders that can play in both worlds. And we are elevating at LinkedIn those foundational teams to make sure that they are not just in support of or in service of our sales leaders, but they have an equal seat at the table, because we know that their success is what's going to create long-term success for our organization.
Dan, I would like to know, what is your sales superpower?
My sales superpower. I think I'm a good listener. And I think that oftentimes customers feel like the world around them is chaotic, that a lot's happening to them, and they're looking for a partner that can help simplify the problems that they're facing. And so I've found that the way I can be most helpful for a customer is to take all in as much as possible the problems that they're facing, all the constraints, the reasons why it's hard, the things that they've tried in the past, and helping distill that down to a simple view of the situation that they can then act on. Oftentimes that action is then with us. Sometimes that action's not. But I think people can feel paralyzed when the world feels complicated.
Sure.
And so I think creating simplicity for me is a way that I can be as helpful as possible.
I love that.
That's great.
That's great.
How would you describe sales in one word?
Value.
Great.
I like the lack of some.
Do you want me to follow up? I can follow up.
No follow up. Needed the lack of what I was trying to say, the quickness in response.
Yeah.
There's no hesitation, lack of hesitation.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so obvious if any organization looks at their data, and I'm a data-driven person. If you deliver value for their clients, you build great long-term growing relationships over time. If you asked a client, who do you want to do more business with? They're going to say the companies that are helping me solve my problems.
Right.
And I tend to think that it is the only lever and the primary lever that every company has to grow their business. Like, how much value do you get to create? So if you get your sales team aligned around how to create value, how to be part of the solution, how to help customers look at problems in different ways and new solutions to solve those problems, you're going to build a great business.